Treasury Laws Amendment Bill, Financial Market Infrastructure and Other Measures, is one of the biggest changes to company reporting in a generation. This bill is going to change the way of life. It's going to cost more money to live. In the middle of a difficult cost of living crisis, they have brought in this bill, which is only going to worsen cost of living. Any business above $50 million has to provide an annual report around Scope 3 emissions. Farmers will have to disclose all emissions to the bank. If they get this wrong, they could be sued by ASIC and Environmental Defender's Office. The Future Made in Australia bill. All of these costs will be passed on to small and medium-sized businesses, and guess what? They pass them all on to consumers and customers in the middle of a cost of living crisis, if they get it right. And if they don't get it right, they get fined. This is a big risk. The Coalition will be moving amendments later in this debate on this bill, and if those amendments are not accepted by the House, we will oppose this bill. This is not about being pro or anti-climate, it's about being pro-small and family business, the backbone of this country that employs so many people. This bill puts an unacceptable compliance burden on the Australian economy at a time when government is claiming that they will actually reduce it. But what we're actually seeing is that compliance is going up, red tape is going up, costs are going up. That's what businesses are telling us right around the country. And the bill is at odds with our peers, the United States of America, with the UK and with Canada, who aren't going to the extremes of this bill. This bill is a risk to small businesses, to those who contract with them. And the bill risks accelerating the trend of debanking. We are seeing among our farmers, our miners and our resources industry this is happening. What is debanking? Debanking is also known within the banking industry as de-risking. It's the closure of people's or organisations' bank accounts by banks that perceive the account holders to pose a financial, legal, regulatory or reputational risk to the bank. Now, this is a big issue. We believe that this will have an impact, higher costs onto the Australian economy when we can least afford it. We believe that this bill is basically a green tape bomb that's going to add costs. And Treasury's own figures say that this measure will cost $1.3 million per year for businesses to comply with. This is higher compliance costs than similar schemes, as I said, in other comparative countries like the US, or our friends in New Zealand or the UK. The inclusion of Scope 3 emissions and the enforcement regime means that big companies have to report. They will have to pass the risk down their supply chain to small business customers. And that means that if you're a farmer who banks with a company, with a big company, you'll have to disclose what you're doing. A cafe owner selling the coffee in the lobby of a big company in the middle of the city has to disclose what they're doing. A building supplier providing office fit-outs to a big company has to disclose. A manufacturer buying ingredients or components from a big company would have to disclose. And we've already seen manufacturing jobs fall by about 10% under this government. The minister here at the table said in question time just a few weeks ago we got about 900,000 jobs in manufacturing. Guess what? During COVID there was 1 million jobs in manufacturing, 10% fall, and this will only make it worse. Labor is funding the environmental activists like the Environmental Defender's Office to ensure that this happens, to make sure that these costs and that they are held accountable. ASIC has made it clear in its evidence to the Senate Economics Committee that these compliant costs will be passed on to small businesses. ASIC has confirmed that these concerns are so extensive that they have been raised with ASIC by the Australian Small and Family Business Enterprise Ombudsman. Labor needs to see sense here, that taxing business, whether they're big business, over $50 million, guess what? It's all passed on to the small businesses, and then it's passed on to the mum and dads and the people in the gallery and the people that we represent here. At a time when almost 16,000 businesses have gone into insolvency since Labor came to office, it's just 2 years, This is the wrong law at the wrong time. There is a better way, and I would just note that the compliance cost is particularly onerous, and that 75% of ASX-listed companies already voluntarily disclose climate-related information to investors because they see a commercial benefit in doing so. The Coalition will make it easier. If we're given the opportunity to govern in 12 months' time, the Coalition will make it easier to do business, partly because we have a leader in the leader of the opposition, who's run small and family business. His father runs small and family businesses, who understands what it is to employ someone and how to make sure that the economy grows. The Coalition wants to boost productivity. We've seen productivity fall through the floor in the last 2 years under this government, and this government says very, very little about it. You don't hear the Treasurer talking about how productivity has fallen. And when productivity falls, guess what? All adds to inflation. All the costs are going up at the moment. People know it, whether it's food, electricity, rent, mortgages. I mean, since the Coalition left office, everyone's mortgage has gone through the roof. And if you're renting, guess what? Your rents are gone through the roof as well. And last night in last night's budget, the Commonwealth Rent Assistance, it's gone up $25 or something, from $90 to $125. Meanwhile, their rents have gone up $100 a week. That's the reality, and this mob aren't listening. Independent research has put the cost of red tape to the economy at more than $176 billion a year. I mean, we're completely over-regulated in some areas. And this government is making it worse and worse and worse. Small businesses, as I said, Deputy Speaker, bear the brunt of this. They don't have the human resource departments that big companies have. Often in a small business, it's the owner of the business, the husband or wife, the kids maybe, the uncle. You might have 2 or 3 people in the business that actually are doing the lot. They're actually selling, they're chasing up finances, they're employing, they're doing payroll, accounts payable or accounts receivable. They don't have the human resources to pass on Scope 3 emissions to bigger companies. And the instant asset write-off, one thing we'll do there is make sure the instant asset write-off is decent. I mean, in the budget last night, they put the instant asset write-off at $20,000. I mean, what a joke. You can't buy any sort of vehicle for under 20 grand. It used to be unlimited under the Coalition. Unlimited under the Coalition, Minister. That's what it was, Deputy Speaker. Uncapped. Yeah. Uncapped. You could buy it, and guess what? Employment went through the roof. In last night's budget, we're going to see employment rise with 178,000 people more unemployed this time next year, as unemployment rises to 4.5%. That was in the budget last night. So, Deputy Speaker, we will repeal the worst elements of Labor's industrial relations laws that are making it harder to hire Australians. We're not going to govern for our donors and legislate for our donors like Labor do. Whatever the union donors want, let's just do that. I mean, seriously, we're meant to support all Australians, have low costs, high productivity, and then this government is just making it harder and harder for people. Under the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Dixon, a Dutton Coalition government will stand up for small business through a deregulation agenda that will level the playing field between small and big businesses, ease cost pressures and support lower inflation and economic growth that benefits all Australians, everyone, those people that are doing it tough, those people that are working and those people that are retired and using super. All Australians. We won't be picking winners and losers like the Albanese Labor government.